There was a loud bang and a wet splatter as another oversized lizard head was turned to red mush beside me. I turned back from the pile of disintegrated dust I'd recently created to see the headless corpse collapse to the blood asphalt. It seemed that Buck Shot had been lying when he said these fuckers were sneaky. The familiar sandy-coated Buck stood just beside the dead lizard, his golden rifle relieved of its aiming stance as he trotted over. "Think that's the last of 'em out front," he stated, his tone buzzing with satisfaction as he looked over the 10 or so dead geckos, at pink ash piles staining the asphalt around us. The pair of us had come down here first. Eventually I'd have just as Star's cannons leveled the place from up on the dune. Yet with Buckshot's wares apparently still aside, it wasn't an option. Furthermore, I'd intended to leave him and Sherry up on the hill too, yet the sandy buck suggested against it. I thought to argue. Obviously he didn't trust us near his wares unsupervised. Yet having shot us only moments ago, I didn't think he was gonna openly say as much. Therefore, we were all down her buzzing about like a swarm of overly armed blood sprites trying to kill all the scaly fuckers. The area itself had once been an old wagon stop along the long road before the desert. Most of the walls had collapsed or been slowly eroded by the desert. A great deal of the places was buried under drifts of sand. Two open garage doors sat on the right side, each containing the corpses of rusty old wagons. Both appeared to have been in a state of repair that would have never been finished. I already cleared both the surrounding asphalt and smaller wreckages that were scattered around the place. Gina was flying above, and Star had gone round back where several more sky wagons lay stacked in this net-sagging heap of dusty metal and rust. The pile's right side was almost completely covered by sand, making it almost indistinguishable from the other waves upon the desert sand. Back there were two more structures, and an old motel, the likes of which was half collapsed on its far side, exposing many tattered rooms. Opposite, the still standing section of the building crept round to the far left side of the wagon workshop. I could barely make out any of the upper levels on account of their long balconies being flooded by mounds of sand. Below, the doors to the place were no less consumed by the desert. Drifts of dust poured in through the shattered glass front. The sand was in the process of burying the reception area. Directly behind the workshop was what happened to be some sort of small broadcast tower. As of yet, I had only been able to identify the building with the sight of the large rusted spire that stood atop it. On the rooftop beside the spire, I could see the rusted remnants of a large sky dragon, wagon. The thing having seemingly crashed into the tower structure long ago, narrowly missing that tower. A part of me wondered why anybody would need such a thing out here in the middle of nowhere. Yet even before the war, being stuck out in the desert with no means of communication was practically a death sentence. Shame that it didn't save the many scattered skeletons cast over the rusted terrain around us, leaning from the windows of rusted wagons like rags. Speaking of the wagons, and given the sound of gunfire and lack of explosions coming over the main structure, I assume none of us had managed to hit any of their more explosive parts, nor any of the fuel barrels. Beside me stood Cherry, her prized pistol levitating firmly in her magic. "Not bad," I told her casually, motioning to the several geckos she managed to disintegrate. She smiled at me proudly, but just like the last time I'd praised her, I could sense a part of her that just wanted to be humbled. That only made me smile that bit wider as I levitated my blaster forward and looked to the tattered door of the workshop. "Ready for some more target practice?" I asked encouragingly. The pink man levitated the pistol up, mimicking my actions as she nodded. A moment later I found myself crouched beneath the far right corner of the garage. The ruined wall, and the great deal of sand that had mounted it, provided suitable cover. Not that I needed it. These geckos didn't have guns. But this was, in my eyes, as much a lesson for Cherry as it was a mundane task for me. If I was going to make her wasteland ready, then she needed to get into the habit of taking cover right away. Even so, as Buck cautiously opened the door, and the fresh smell of the scaly creatures rushed out to greet us, My intention was focused on every scaly find that strayed within 10 hoof steps of her, only for my mind to remind me that in doing so I was only undermining my own goals. Just told my thoughts to shut up. Again, I'd take full steps with this. Buck Shot didn't comment on the fact that in my distraction one of the geckos had just managed to catch my tail. His subsequent shot had saved my flank from a biting. Not that it would be the first bite, but a bite nonetheless. How many more did you say they were? I asked, looking to him as I reloaded and motioning for Cherry to do the same. He glanced ahead over the first pile of dead geckos and peered inside. I say no more than 20, he stated, his tone seething with hatred for the mutated creatures. He reloaded his golden rifle, and nodded and mouthed thanks for his saving of my rump before a moment came later the roar of Star's minigun sounded from behind the main building. Well, I think we got the last of them out there, Buckshot added. Certainly looked that way, I added mentally. Jerry's eyes followed mine until her gaze came to rest on the sandy buck too. I winced and for a moment, afraid the sight of another blood-stained pony would break her. Yet before I could say anything, the mare's expression turned rigid as she smiled. I had no instinctive proof that there wasn't something else going on in her head, but I liked to think that she was far stronger than she looked. The pony I was seeing now was the one that had refused to stay by while her friends were stolen from her. To resist that past trauma and be able to bear the brunt of the pain made her a far stronger pony than I was. Nevertheless, I knew that this was just the start, and the fucked up entity that was the great and powerful villain had a lot more tricks up its sleeve. I forced that thought in my head, taking a step back as Buck Shot moved over the scaly corpses and into the rusted old doorway. How are you holding up? Asked my companion, secretly begging Celestia that I could ease the strain on her.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
She responded bravely, bringing up her weapon. Once again I felt a strangely warm pride, like I was finally seeing the pony I had saved, the pony that had tried to be better. Good, you're doing great, I told her, my friendly tone almost a joyful laugh. She gave a weak smile, bowing her head slightly and focusing on the rusted door. Then there was a sudden bang, and she jumped. My head swiveled into the interior of the garage's main building. Blast the scaly vermin! Buckshot hissed as the gecko latched at left side slumped out of the doorway. You stay close to me and watch my tail, okay? I told Cherry, trying not to think of the many other ponies I'd say that to, for different reasons. Regardless, she nodded, trying to stay as humble as she could. Just like the last time, I could see that the responsibility I had given her was filling her pride, akin to that of a filly who'd earned the right to stay home alone for the first time. I'm gonna go ahead. Guess there's a good dozen of 'em in there, Buckshot declared, peering through the second doorway that combined with the first to form a small foyer. I ain't got enough rounds for 'em all, though, he added, his tone growing deeply frustrated. I pulled my saddle blaster up, poking the barrel through the latter doorway. I'll clear them out. You just pick off the ones I miss, I told him, stepping through the doorway. He nodded. He was seemingly dissatisfied that he was not the one to be killing all the creatures. Beyond the dusty wing room greenery, the floor was stripped of carpet, leaving only dried cork, plaster, and sand in its place. The tattered wallpaper formed a patchwork of cracks, its dirt-stained coat appearing like a dried riverbed, and flaking more than a ghoul. The roof was no better. A crumbling plaster mess had seemed unable to decide which of the desert's elemental extremes it wanted to be taken down by first. To my left was an almost bare wall, save for an old pre-war notice board. The metal frame was almost rusted through. The dust-stained glass panel had been smashed, leaving only a sharp, jagged row of teeth around its edge. Inside were several posters, most scorched beyond recognition. Yet I could just make out one detailing a Pegasus aerial team adoring sleek black gear, with a rainbow-maned mare in the center. Apparently, decades ago, Victory was just a wing beat away. Yeah, a wing beat to this fucked up wasteland. Now the poster displayed a similar message. Yeah, I guess keeping Equestria safe wasn't an accurate statement either. Renowned Griffin assassins jailed for war crimes against Equestria. Elusive criminal Garo Nightclaw was arrested and convicted of a stream of illegally taxed and organized homicides. Griffin officials overseas refuse to offer sanctuary to one whom they have labeled highly dishonorable. I almost laughed at that last one, a faded newspaper article. Good description of every town merc ever, you poor pre-war bastards. I mentally snickered to myself, making a note to let Gina see the article if I could. The opposite wall opposite was covered by a set of worn old lockers. Those that weren't warped, doorless, or filled with sand were closed tight. Beyond them, on the far side of the room, was the counter. A long wooden desk, now a creamy bleached color, stretching most of the room's length. Behind it was yet another notice board. This one shattered, rested, and empty save for some posters. All of them were too warped to read, and some faded as scribbles. The whole thing hung crooked on its left side. In the center of the room below along the line were Buck Shot's wearers and about half a dozen angry geckos. The scaly little fuckers looked much like their textbook pre-war cousins, only they were nearly the size of a small pony, had a mouth lined with rows of razor-sharp teeth and fingers tipped with claws. Most were too busy feeding on whatever was left in the bags. Two rose up, making their signature hissing sound before charging wildly. Running on their hind legs, they were more than a little clumsy when it came to obstacles. A buckshot's bangs made for plenty. My targeting matrix had already designated them as hostile. 10 in total. The first was turned to dust. The spawn meant him carrying a cloud of pink towards the smoking barrel of the upgrade energy weapon as it levitated around. The second stumbled, my shot hitting it in the back as it fell. With a meaty splat, the scale mass exploded, claws limbs sprawling all over the bags. The last show had gone unnoticed by the other geckos, however. The remaining eight swiftly stood, charging in the familiar fashion to their fallen predecessors. By the goddess, this was almost pitiful. The noises they made before attacking were pure entertainment. One was greeted by a rifle round to the open mouth as to my right Buck Shot opened fired. Two more were returned to dust, and another lost his upper torso in a wet splatter of gore. The remaining four were unfazed. One tripped rather comically, sprawling over a fallen locker. Another, the foremost, leapt toward that Buck Shot, only to be met by the hard end of his rifle as he swung it around and struck the creature across the muzzle. With a bone-spilling crunch, the scaly mass fell flailing to the floor. The third was greeted by a blast of magical energy, cutting its torso. The last fell right on my hoofs, hissing up at me as it frantically attempted to right itself. I reared up, bringing my full weight down on it. I was not a big pony, yet I felt its frail skull crack all the same. The lizard twitched, giving one last gargled hiss before it fell silent. "Take that, you blasted vermin!" Buckshot added, as the gecko bested by the fallen locker smit the wrong end of his rifle. I just rolled my eyes. All boring gun ponies just wanted to keep hearing the bang of their oh-so-precious firearm. "I reckon that's the last of 'em," he stated, kicking the twitching dead mass aside, before trotting over to his wares. Eagerly looking through them, the buck frowned. "Oh, well, this is just fucking merry, ain't it?" he growled, pulling what looked like a ragged cloth from one of the torn backs. "Goldmare stole me that back in New Appaloosa. Damn fuckers got and chewed it right up," he hissed, tossing the ragged mess to the floor. The spark died slightly at the mention of that place. It had been my home once, and I knew that mare. I mean, who didn't? Yeah, that, for me, was a long time ago. A time I tried to forget. Buckshot's next reveal only tested me a bit further. The Wasteland Survival Guide. I was glad that such a thing was now nothing more than a torn mess of chewed paper and gecko saliva. Without boosting a nostalgia, sparkling and emotional flame I didn't want to kindle, I swiftly set my gaze about the room. There, I promptly noticed something I'd missed previously. Behind the counter was another door, slightly hidden behind the crooked notice board. I then checked the back. The stallion glanced up, first to me, then to the door. Fine by me, he said swiftly, before eagerly returning to his bags. Cautiously, I trotted over, moving around the counter. You still with me, hun? I asked Cherry as I noticed the pink mare trotting up behind me, seemingly oblivious to all else. For a brief moment, she looked at her as if somehow she shouldn't be there. I swiftly cursed myself for being so bland and corrected myself with equal haste. My smile summoned her back from that dark place, and she nodded.
Yeah, I guess.
She stuttered, seeming to struggle for words as she thought deeply.
I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. That's all.
She swiftly blurted. Well, that was a lie. I'll bite it with some truth, yet I didn't say as much. It's just now that I pretended to take pride in the fact that she thought I was a good enough teacher, even if my real pride was in the fact she was still choosing to follow me. Dragonfire, you really shouldn't invite more death and trauma for yourself. My mind snickered slightly. I beat those thoughts with a mental hammer before turning to the hidden door. With the flare of my horn, the notice board strained and fell to the floor. A moment later, and my magic infiltrated what had once been the handle, opening it with a click. Thankfully, it was unlocked. Inside was a small room with cluttered shelves on one side with a pile of cardboard boxes stacked on the other. Royal Bronco was written on most of them. At that moment, I was glad whoever had once worked here hadn't had the chance to build any of these dismantled robots. Getting here would have been significantly more complicated if that were the case. On the far side of the room was the faint green glow of a terminal, flickering beneath a layer of sandy dust. At times I was surprised that things still worked after all this time. Yet I knew what everybody said about stable tech. When they built something, they yada yada yada. I trailed off, mouthing the words likely to myself. On the floor beside the terminal was a safe, the last of which was just as dusty as everything else. Furthermore, its lock was untouched. Nobody had tried to get into it. In fact, it didn't seem like anybody had been here for centuries. The coast clear, I holstered my cell blaster and moved over to the terminal, blowing away the dust only to find it locked. Well, the wasteland wasn't gonna make everything easy. I sighed, looking to my pip-buck before hooking it up to the terminal. Okay, Dragon, I see how much you've lost your touch. Several backcuts and one almost broken screen later, I was in. The password was Hero, of all things, and it had taken me that long to find out. Let's just not talk about this again. My mind unanimously agreed as I looked over the contents. I unlocked the safe first. After that, I found 3 audio recordings which I swiftly downloaded onto my pitbook. Inside the safe were a few stacks of pre-war bits, rather pointless. But I took them regardless on the stealth buck. Once again rather strange, but it was mine now. Finally, I found a memory orb. A memory orb? I had seen many of these things before. For a moment, I was nearly in it. Yet my magic waved the moment I felt its touch. I'd had the misfortune of accidentally getting locked in one of these in combat before. That was one of the first ones I encountered, and I'd never seen Star as unhappy as he was afterward. Still, if they hadn't taken me prisoner, we'd never have found their secret camp. And I wasn't a good prisoner, especially when unharmed. That, and I don't think those ponies had ever dealt with a mare in the heat before. Not that such natural cycles actually do you any good, my mind snickered. I lasted my wandering thoughts with a shake of my head. Still, I like to see memories. It was the only way I could see what may have still been if it weren't for monsters. But if nothing else, they were interesting. The only condition was I had to do where there was absolutely no danger. Basically in my room back in Churn, but I was able to bribe my way into exceptions. That said, I picked up the swirling sphere on my host and placed it into my saddlebags for my pit buck's sorting spell to deal with. Yet I glanced into the safe I saw something else. A photo, dusty and old. It was almost completely fitted, yet the safe had guarded it well enough to ensure somebody saw it before the end. It was an image of an old brown earth pony standing smiling proudly beside a red and dark gray coated mare. Both wore the same happy expression. Below them were two more ponies, a pale-coated unicorn filly with a brown mane, and beside her, an older cream-coated earth pony mare with magenta mane and green eyes. None of their cutie marks were visible. The youngest of them, however, just seemed delighted to be a part of the image. I swallowed. They were all so happy. So, my sigh wavered as my head dropped to the left. They were a family, a true family, and now they were dead. They died such a long time ago. Fortunately, by the lack of bones in the room, not here. The image of those dead outside swiftly challenged that assumption, however. They deserved more than to die because of monsters with mega spills and balefire bombs. I let out a small sigh, stuffing the photo into my saddlebags. You don't even know them, I mentally remarked. Yeah, I was taking the image with me anyway. Then, all of a sudden, Cherry screamed. My head shot up as I turned. The pile of boxes to my left exploded and I came tumbling down. The distinct form of a gecko's tooth-filled maw appeared right in front of my visor. Number of hostile targets, 1, I declared obviously. I reached for my weapon, but it was too late. Fuck me, this was not going to be pleasant. In that instant, there was a zapping sound, a boiling hiss. While a groan, the gecko vanished before my eyes. Number of hostile targets, 0. My targeting matrix decreed as the pile of pink ash fell on my hoofs. My eyes widened, my mouth falling open as I looked around to see Cherry standing panicked and shivering behind me. She was panting fast, her muzzle open as her lungs demanded more air that it could take in. Her horn was glowing with a faint green aura, and levitating in the same sparkling hue before her was Zap Zap. An energy pistol. She saved me. Not exactly from death. Geckos were not that strong, not to mention I had my helmet. But she spared me some serious facial mauling. My horn flashed steadily the pistol in the air as her magic flickered out. It had been a very quick shot, I remarked to myself admirably. Hey, it's okay. You got it, I told her soothingly as her panic cocooned her away. Cherry? Added in the same warm tone, noticing she had it a lot tenser than usual. I merely assumed that it was shock. The little fucker had come out of nowhere after all. She took another deep breath and coughed, gasping more before finally wheezing.
It's gone. I got it?
She asked. I gave her a nod, glancing back to the pink ash pile. In the floor behind it was a hole. Funny, never seen a gecko burrow before? But I guess it was the first time for everything. At least I didn't have to worry about my targeting matrix wasn't fucked for missing it. Moments later, I looked back to Jerry as she began to calm down. Her breath slowed enough to allow her nostrils to take over and her eyes closed tight as she swallowed.
How did I do?
She said, coughing as her true voice surfaced. I placed a hoof on her shoulder, worried that I might have to take it off at the first sign of irritation in the mirror. Saving my hide from most unpleasant experience. I'd say, 9 points out of 10, I offered kindly. She smiled, her exhalations slowing. Then I was again expecting that possibly cute pride. Instead, her expression fell flat, as if the achievement was stolen by some cruel pony in her head. Cherry, you okay? I asked, lowering my head to hers. The pink mare gave a weak sniff.
Yeah, I just never actually saved anybody before.
She said softly. All the praise in the world is no good unless you feel inside, my mind remarked, and for once I couldn't help but listen. I frowned. She hadn't saved my life, as such, but I didn't need to tell her that. She was smart enough to know that Gecko had only a small chance of actually killing me, but that wasn't the problem.
How many times has she let somebody down before? Why didn't he really know about her? I plugged my mind back into shape. Dragonfire, you've been through this shit before. Help her! I told myself firmly, drawing the words out as if speaking to an infant foal. Hey, Missy. You saved me from a face full of gecko. Don't go thinking you're no good, I countered, acting on what felt like social instinct. I'd imagine if it had been anybody else demanding something of her like that, the big man would have bolted, and for a brief moment I was afraid I was no expectation. Yet she managed a frail smile, a weak fire casting away the cold of her depressive anxiety. I mirrored the expression. She looked impossibly innocent like that. I reflected. My magic shifted, bringing zap down between us. Cherry's eyes watched the energy pistol closely as I snaked it by her head and into the front holster of her modified utility parting. Now you can keep it knowing you've more than earned it, I told her. She looked skeptical at first. I could see that doubt in her eyes. Yet, like with the scene outside, she did her best to force it out. I'll take good care of it, she assured me for the second time, and I nodded. And I'll take good care of you, I assured her and returned. Oh, that place up in the hillside? I heard nothing but bad news about it. They say it's haunted, Buck Shot explained, leaning back against the wall opposite the door to outside. Gina slowly shook her head at him from her watchful position by the door. After clearing the whole place and blocking all the strange burrows, we'd all made it inside for the night. Star had removed his outer armor, yet was covered in what smelled like a cut of overcooked gecko. Now the bug was laying beside me, it was irresistible to link my frail little body to his larger and more muscled body. The strangely pleasant smell of well-working stallion breaking the foul musk of dead gecko. Well, my forehead was raised, and I brushed it through his mane, and removed the armor from said hoof, as well as my helmet, both of which sat on the floor beside me. I said the rather sleep-deprived Cherry. As of the past 2 hours, she'd been asleep, but getting her to stay that way was still a challenge. The raiders had certainly done a number on her nightmares. Not only that, but I practically had to force her to eat. Sorry about the only thing that had kept me from losing it. I was more worried than I'd ever expected, but she had my gun. A trusted, well-maintained gun. She had the skill to kill a gecko, yet she was still far from safe. No matter how much I kidded myself, I couldn't protect her independently. That said, I waited until she was asleep to cuddle up to Star. Didn't want her to think she had to share me. She needed me as a whole to put her through this, and she could have my attention. Star deserved at least a platonic cuddle. Haunted? His deep voice boomed beneath my ears, sending warm chills through me. Buck Shot looked back from the mocking griffin by the door, his rifle slung around his shoulders. He looked more and a little uncomfortable to see me, almost like a towel draped over Star's back. I gave him the fortune of closing my eyes, so not to meet his as he awkwardly blushed. Yeah, they call him the Prissy Ghost. Say it keeps the place far clearer and more organized. Can't say I've seen it myself, but I heard plenty of stories. Heh, yeah right, Gina interrupted with a huff. I opened my eyes at that, raising an eyebrow as did my companion. The Prissy Ghost. Just like the griffin implied, that was ridiculous. I said as much, but Sandy Bug just shrugged and Star grumbled. What about location? Star asked, as I only lay my head against him, pondering the wild implications of a prissy ghost. No, can't say I have one. I just know it's in the hills and no pony's been there since the war, Buckshot offered, glancing out to Gina as if weighing another slight comment. Yet the griffin's eyes were locked on the dusty world outside. If no ponies had been there since the bombs, then how do they know it's haunted? I asked confidently. Buckshot looked back and shrugged. I lowered my head with a smirk. It was horse apples, just as I suspected. Still, this whole job had made me slightly on edge. Pre-war experiments and some pony paying a whole lot of cash to get info on them. Not an ideal setup. As for the place itself, Destiny, I recalled. I'd never heard of it. Not like the ministry's Bronco, Iron Shod, and like stable tech. Star's head turned as he looked forward. I had to really hold back my urges as his thick muscles shifted below me.
No, I couldn't do this as much as he deserved it. He was still at work as if when Cherry saw me, well, reluctantly I moved from his back and moved forward. Damn, now I was bored and guilty. Star deserved affection, I couldn't give it to him. Instead, I did nothing to do but sit here and listen to ridiculous ghost stories. Then I dropped to the floor, leaning on the dusty cork and wood. My eyes closed lazily and then opened. The left sphere falling upon Cherry, then right on Star's forehoof. Damn it, Dragonfire, leave Star out of this. I asked myself, and my right eye sealed. Cherry, however, overpowered my mind's demands. Her breathing was heavy, and her sleepless was peaceful. But she was so innocent. She didn't deserve any of this. She was one of those ponies in the wasteland didn't deserve to toy with. Those raiders didn't deserve her, and strangely I felt that I also was undeserving of her. That going off my deep lust, but I'll admit if she were not traumatized, I might have had a move on her cute flank by now. No! Dragonfire, damn you! Leave her early sexual craving mind out of this. Fucking everybody won't get you what you want. Besides, she's a mare, it doesn't work like that, my mind screamed impatiently. Nature's workshop door doesn't swing that way. Usually, I'd have emotionally compressed at my mind's cruel as accusation, but instead, I fell into a slump. I had to save her and fight off the fact that she was incredibly cute. I growled some more, glancing back over myself. Fuck you, the goddess? The wasteland? Some mysterious, imponent entity with an irritatingly fancy voice? Whoever gave me this useless barren body and stopped me from selling myself right, fuck you. My mind slumped against my left forehoof. Then I looked at my pet buck. Well, there was one thing. I treated a set of ear blooms and I prodded at the flickering green screen with a hoof. Entry 1, the fuzzy image stayed as I found the recording. Entry 1. Hi Lucky, it's Mom here. I just wanted to leave you this message before you leave, seeing as I have to work and all. Anyway, and I know we've told you a lot, but I just want to tell you how proud I am and your father are that you've gotten this position and your sister. I'm sure she's proud too. Well, seeing that your father will be working at the garage tomorrow, you'll probably see him on your way up there. As for me, I just want to say don't forget about us little ponies when you're a big executive of a private company. And, well, I love you, sweetie. The voice was cool and kind. That of a seemingly proud mare. I could sense it in her tone like it was lined with golden affection for the pony in question. I had no definitive proof, but given the place I found it and the mention of the last two younger ponies on which was a sister, I guess this was something to do with the family photo I'd found in the safe. They really did love each other then. Hearing it was far more heart-wrenching than seeing it. And yet I had seen far too many snippets of a world long dead to feel utterly heartbroken by it anymore. That was both my defense and my shame. Rotor, those strange prodigies in Zeus were here again today. They claimed to be from the Ministry of Moral, yet they didn't seem that way to me. I even asked Alma Meadow, you know, the mayor who works at the misery hub in Manhattan. I asked her when she did me that favor. She hadn't a clue. Apparently, the ministry doesn't work that covertly, and they certainly don't wear black trench coats that scream creepy. Anyway, they were asking about Lucky, and when I told them she got a new job at that place, they just
and told me to have a good day. Well, I tried contacting her and couldn't get through. If you ask me, it's probably just the stress of a big first-time job on her end. I'm not saying you could skip out of your work. I know you've got a lot coming on down at the garage with those robots, the posts, and all. But maybe it would be better if you were here if those ponies come back. I don't know, something about them was just off, and no, it wasn't the obvious clothes. They were just curious, and then, well, not curious all of a sudden. Anyway, I got some things together for dinner tonight, and now Lex moved out, and we have the house all to ourselves for a change. Look forward to seeing you later. Entry 3. Those ponies are here again. I just went to the window and caught two of them at the door. Well, I haven't opened it. And damn you for not being here. Friendly husband you are, leaving me to put up with these window weirdos. Anyway, I don't intend to see them a second time. I'm sneaking out the back. I still have that perfect your cousin gave me if you try and follow me. I'll be coming to you, so if you haven't read this message by then, I just have to tell you in person. If you're not there, then first of all, where the hey are you? Second, I'll be in the back of the garage. I looked curiously at the flickering green array of files and numbers. Some point centuries ago had been either really bad or unfortunately misunderstood. Thinking it was the one in the photo made me feel somewhat sympathetic to her plight. Even if she may have once been some form of master criminal. I didn't know much about the ministries. What I heard about the one in question was mainly about its rather unique way of treating those who were suspected of criminal activity, especially later on in the war. The ministry were all fun and parties on the outside, all fucked up and dark on the inside. But hey, at least they served cupcakes. I just sighed. I think I had heard before. All the points back then we were fucked up, waiting for the entire world to take up the mantle when they inevitably blew themselves to pieces. Levitating my stuff back into my saddlebags, I felt my magic brush against something else. Memory orb. It wasn't hard to think that this was something to do with the favorite mentioned in the recording, given that the MOM were once again involved. Then I assured the self book was the present, as she called it. Obviously, she'd not been cause it was still very much here. Regardless, I pulled out the orb. I wonder what you could be, I asked myself in a hushed tone, rotating it curiously in my forehoofs. Well, no danger here, I declared with a shrug, laying my horn down to touch the orb before anybody could stop me. A second later, and the magical connection flared, and instead the dark, rusty ruin fell away. The dark reality was replaced by a bright, sunny meadow. I felt the sun's warm touch on my coat, or more specifically, the host's. Its blissful light blessed the bright, green grass as it beamed down from the endless blue sky. If it had been me, I'd have just sighed. There's no point in going over the argument of what if we lost or given up, because none of that would bring it back. Yet for now, I can see the sun, the sky, the lush grass and trees. As much as it appeared to be infinite at first, the meadow itself didn't stretch on forever, however. Instead, it was stopped at a tall, wide picket fence to the precise. Beyond the tide wooded area was the harsh sand of the desert. Well, at least nothing had changed out there, I noted as I saw the same sandy dust bowl. In the left corner of the garden was a tall apple tree, and on the right a sky blue shed. Beside it was a guarded flower patch filled with a whole manner of beautiful colored flowers. Back against the wall of the shed, a wooden frame supported a magnificent rose bush, each brilliant red flower like a crimson star blessed by the goddess themselves. Below, a plethora of blues, oranges and yellows drifted upon a sea of lush green leaves, cut off from the lawn by a small stone barrier. Knelt down on all four hooves before the flower patch was a pale gray-coated mare with chocolate brown mane, the cutie mark of a golden star on her flank. She was a unicorn, her own almost completely covered by her mane. Speaking of her looks, it had been me here and now. It had been all over her. Instead, my host was glancing nervously at her hose as the mare tended the flowers gently. From what I could see of the pony whose memories I was viewing, she was a dark-coated mare with what appeared to be strands of deep red mane invading her eyes. Lucky? My host asked tentatively, looking up and swallowing. The mare had looked back, and unfortunately, my host didn't seem interested in leaving her eyes upon her flank. Yes, mother? Okay, now I could see why. This may not have been my body. I was fucked up for you in trading that previous idea. My host swallowed nervously again, seeming incredibly twitchy as she approached. You know we're proud, right? Both me and your father. We're all very happy? The words swiftly slipped through my host's muzzle and Lucky smiled as she looked back. You're not afraid, are you? She asked, seeming almost amused. The host stopped, glancing down before looking back. Well, no. It's just we love you, and after your sister moved to Ponyville, we only had you. Now you're leaving. We... The deluge of words ceased as her emotions formed a lump in my host's throat. Hey, Mom. Lucky stayed, lifting my host's head with a forehoof. There was no resistance from her as our eyes met hers. They were sad, and happy. My host sad, yet proud. You know I'll always be thinking of you, she assured my host warmly, before wrapping her in a loving hug. It may not have been there, but I felt something I didn't want to feel in my subconsciousness at her embrace. My host tended to share the same sick impulses instead. She wrapped her hose around her daughter. I love you, sweetie, she whispered into the cream mare's ear. I know you do. You never stop reminding me. She laughed, releasing her mother and looking to the flowers at her host, disturbing one with a poke. My host looked at her actions then smiled. You know if your sister saw you doing that to her own roses, she'd go mad, she warned softly. Lucky looked back wryly. Maybe she shouldn't have moved so far away then, she suggested with a slight giggle. My host rolled her eyes. Lucky continued. Hey, at least I won't be so far away. Heck, I had station in the facility just up the road. You could say it was like destiny, she said. Then the dreary wasteland world fell back into place in all of its dull and hostile splendor of the world. Destiny? It was a peculiar word indeed. Footnote. Level up. New perk added. Exterminator level 1. When it comes to the wasteland's irritating vermin, you're the pony call. Gain 10 damage against all creatures when they're below 20% maximum health.